I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. If we can please start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Gay, could you please call the roll for us?
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mueterspaw.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. Okay, this evening we will be starting with an update from District 53 State Rep Thomas Hall. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Mayor.
It's like you got a lot of sun over that 4th of July weekend.
Yes, to answer your statement there.
Either that or he's really embarrassed.
Now maybe it's
Probably
a little
both.
bit of both.
Probably both. Yes, probably both. Well, thank you guys for allowing me to come give a brief update. As my sunburn shows, I had a great 4th of July weekend. I hope you and your families as well had a great 4th of July weekend. Great job to the City of Middletown, the Public Works, the Police Department on an awesome 3rd of July celebration with great fireworks, and then a great parade following on Monday morning. I was unable to attend that parade as we were in Liberty Township and the City of Monroe, but I sent some friends up here to the City of Middletown, and I think we had a pretty good turnout here in the city. I'm thankful that I get to come and give a presentation tonight. That way the mayor doesn't have to cut me off in about 2 minutes. The first thing I want to start with is redistricting. That was the most important thing for the last 6 months or so until May, when they finally decided the redistricting mess that it has been. The new House district that the City of Middletown will be included in is House District 46. That district includes Madison Township, includes the City of Middletown, all of the City of Middletown, before parts of Middletown was broken off into a different House district. So all of Middletown will be in one House district that is in Butler County. The City of Monroe, St. Clair Township, New Miami, Lemon Township, and Liberty Township. So the big shift was picking up Liberty Township and also including my hometown of Madison Township in House District 46. The joke is, if you don't like Ohio weather, you're supposed to wait a day or two. If you don't like these maps, you can literally wait till next year, and we're literally going to be redrawing these maps. Again, there is a huge Supreme Court race. There's a huge governor's race that will be taking place in November. Elections have consequences. I will leave it at that. That way we don't get off into a political statement or anything like that. Believe it or not, tomorrow begins early voting for the primary elections for the August 2nd. It's a special primary election for state house races and the state central committee. So tomorrow, July 6th, at the Board of Elections in Butler County on Princeton Road, voters will be able to go down and cast their ballot in person or request absentee ballots starting tomorrow. As far as legislation, we have been super busy trying to get legislation done. When I ran for this seat in 2020, my main promise was to go to Columbus, to be your voice, to get things done. And we have done that. We have had 3 things already signed into law in our first term. House Bill 99, House Bill 176, and House Bill 377. Each legislation is a different part of the ORC code. With House Bill 99, that's the most probably important legislation that I have ever worked on. It's a bill that we started in February of last year, went through 18 different versions. It deals with arming teachers in schools all across Ohio. It is not what you think. It is a permissive piece of legislation. It allows school boards to have this practice and sets a minimum amount of training, but not a maximum amount of training for their specific school to have this practice. It gained a lot of attention locally and throughout the state because of everything going on in the world, in our country. But again, we introduced this in February of 2021, went through 18 different versions, and then the 18th version was ultimately signed into law. We have 3 more things that are sitting in the state Senate right now. When we do get back, I hope to get back in September or in November after the elections to work on to get these things done. It's House Bill 230, House Bill 458, and House Bill 502. As I talked about, we are on summer break right now. It's been anything but a break because of the upcoming election in 4 weeks from today. One thing I did want to touch on before I wrap up here, our capital budget was House Bill 687. In that capital budget, we got some wins for the city of Middletown, one of which was the Robert Hill Community Center expansion and redevelopment project. That was $300,000. And the Great Miami River Trail Middletown to Monroe segment construction project, $200,000 for this year's capital budget. There is a press release that we actually just sent out today. I believe Mr. McCrabb is here, and he had already reached out with some questions on it. It is Hall announces $500,000 for Butler County demolition and revitalization funding. This deals with the land bank and the brownfields. Seth Geiser is a guy we talked to at the Butler County Land Bank. They submitted about $9 million in grants for the Brownsfield remediation program. Last Friday was the first approval for $500,000 to begin addressing 12 to 14 Middletown projects. More information and specifics are upcoming, but we released that today. This was under the state's operating budget, allocated a total of $150 million in grants to be dispersed. The first round of allocations includes $42.1 million and was set aside for all 88 Ohio counties that requested up to $500,000. And I'd be happy to send out more information to the members of council if they have questions on that. A main focus in our time in the Ohio House has been modernizing state government. Obviously, we're the youngest member in the Ohio House, so we're looking at ways to make government more efficient to save taxpayer money. We have done other things as far as addressing railroad block crossings and working with our constituents to put policy forward for the state of Ohio. I come to you tonight as your state representative, but I come to you tonight as we do have new faces on council. If there is any ideas, if there is any legislation, if there's anything specific that you want to look at for the city of Middletown, but for the entire state of Ohio, please let us know. We'd be happy to work with you, happy to put that into legislation and see where it goes. Sometimes legislation takes off. Sometimes it sits General Assembly after General Assembly after General Assembly. But I'm confident that we can work together to get stuff done, whether we're attaching it to other bills or setting it aside as a standalone bill. It's been a complete honor to serve as a state representative for this region. With the new district, we have been campaigning a lot to get to know the folks of Liberty Township in the new part of the district. But as your state representative, I still want to have that connection to you guys to be able to listen to your concerns, but to develop solutions to make Middletown and to make our district a better place. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions from council. If not, if there's no questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me because I really am focused on trying to make Middletown and this district a better place going into the next year.
Thank you. And I'm appreciative of you picking up the phone all the time. I call and ask you questions and put forth ideas for Middletown. So thank you for being accessible. Appreciate it very much.
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments or questions
No.
for Rep. Hall?
Great news on the brownfield money.
Yes. I knew that was a huge thing for Middletown. I was happy we released that today. I believe everything happens for a reason, and maybe God knew we were speaking here tonight. So that happened at the right time. But I did want to, on a side note, say how appreciative I was for each of you with showing up in the community. I serve a lot of cities and a lot of townships. I believe that this council is one of the more active councils in their communities. So I really do appreciate seeing city councilmen and city councilwomen and being accessible by phone or by text or any of that. So I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
You guys have a great night. Thank you.
Too.
Thomas.
Okay, next we have citizen comments. I have 2 comment cards, Amy. Is that all we have this evening? You don't have any more, do you?
I do not.
Okay. We have David Pierce. If you could please state your name and address for the record, and we'll...
Sure. Dave Pierce, 607 Terra Oaks Drive. Mayor and council members, congratulations on a wonderful fireworks show at Smith Park, and skydiving was outstanding. It was a great event for the community, so congratulations. Enjoyed by a lot of families. I'm here tonight to remind everybody about the Ohio Challenge Hot Air Balloon and Skydiving Festival that's coming up next weekend. That's July 15th and 16th. It'll be our 16th year, and you can expect to be entertained by 20 hot air balloons. That includes 4 special shape balloons. And of course, we'll have Team Fast Tracks, our professional skydiving team that we're very blessed to have here in town. They will be doing their famous American flag jump as well as their nighttime pyrotechnic jump. We've got a full array of very diverse food vendors, carnival rides, the car show, and a nightly fireworks show. But what I'm really excited to share with you tonight is we have some new entertainment for everybody. And that, first of all, starts off with a jumbo video board. We will have multiple remote cameras along with an MC on site roaming the grounds. And we anticipate and we expect to have the entire event shown live on the video board. One of the things we're going to be able to do that is rarely seen video of Team Fast Tracks as they go from the ground in the air and then back to the ground. Typically, we only see them when their parachutes deploy, but with the technology that's been developed by Team Fast Tracks, we're going to be able to see the entire experience as they jump out of a plane. So we're really excited about that. We'll be conducting live interviews on site and getting live shots of families having lots of fun. For the first time ever, we're going to be live streamed over YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So it's a wonderful opportunity to highlight the city of Middletown and this community to the outside world. Come early on Saturday at 5 o'clock because we've got 5 to 6 planes lined up to do flyovers. And just in case somebody from the FAA is listening, these are not stunts, these are flyovers, but guaranteed to entertain the crowd for about an hour. And then the Butler County Warbirds will be there offering rides on 2 planes. And one of the things that gets requested all the time is tethered rides. Yes, we will have tethered rides, weather permitting. If you want to learn more, you can follow us online at ohiochallenge.com or on Facebook or on Twitter. We're very active this time of year. So hope to see you there. In the remaining time that I have, wow, am I done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I'll have to come back another time. That was fast. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
You can obviously get with the city and Missy as well to help put that information out. I'm sure
Yep.
they can help with the messaging. Thank you. Okay, next I have Abdul Shakur Ahmad.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
Council, people. My name is Abdul Shakur Ahmed. I live at 220 Park Manor Drive in Dayton, Ohio. I'm here to share what made Middletown. You have a copy of a news article that was published. And on July the 21st, 1825, Governor Clinton of New York and Governor Morrow of Ohio presided over the groundbreaking ceremony with each governor and future U.S. President William Henry Harrison lifting a piece of sod from the rich earth of the Daniel Doty Farm at Middletown, where a monument stands at the Big Rock at the corner of Verity Parkway and Yankee Road. The first marker ever erected in Middletown was a block of limestone as used in construction of locks on the Miami Canal that was inscribed with the date of July 21st, 1825. It was replaced in 1929 with a new tablet and rock monument when the canal was officially closed at the same site. It is located at the northeast corner, same corner, of Yankee and Verity. W.H. Siebert, renowned historian on the Underground Railroad, wrote, "The towpaths of some of our western canals form convenient highways to liberty for a considerable number of self-reliant fugitives and were considered safer than public roads." Another monument erected in 1995 in recognition of Middletown's part in the Underground Railroad lies across the street from the Canal Museum. And on this monument, it states that what Middletown's part in the Underground Railroad was, and it lists the names of 14 colored families that were in Middletown. These families' names were Rice, Hawkins, Colston, Burgett, Miller, Hardy, Edwards, Nutter, Davis, Smith, Robeson, Merritt, Armstead, and Mitchell. These families offered safe houses on the Underground Railroad here in Middletown, Ohio. And what we find is that when the canal was built, it was a collaboration in which whites, blacks, and Native Americans worked toward fulfilling the American ideals embedded in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, Middletown. And we now have the opportunity to join in the history of the towns and villages that were called Covenanters. Wesleyan Methodists and Free Presbyterians had churches and are found to be stations of the Underground Railroad in Middletown, Ohio.
Thank you.
So,
I have to end you there. I hate to cut people off.
Well, July 21st.
Thank you
the
so much.
anniversary. Thank you.
Appreciate you sharing our history with us. Next, we have council comments. Maybe we should limit ourselves to a certain amount of time. Gosh, it's kind of embarrassing sometimes. All right. Councilmember Farrell, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First thing I'd like to bring up is, I'll bring it up during new business, but I think we should address the time for people to talk. I mean, just 3 minutes alone would, if I'm up there, make me nervous and feel like I'm rushed and mess me up, so I think we should address that. Great 4th of July show by Middletown. Appreciate all the public works, cops, the firefighters, everybody there just taking care. It was a great show. I love fireworks myself. I think we all got a lot of them this weekend, so great celebration. Thank you to Team Fast Tracks as well. Skydiving, people shooting off fireworks is pretty cool to me, so enjoy that stuff. Parade was great. Thank you to Jerry Lewis once again, who always puts on a good show. And once again, Mr. Thomas Hall, thank you for your work on the 500,000 in Middletown. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Ninny.
I will try to keep this short and reiterate a few of Councilman Farrell's points of thanks to everyone that's involved in our 4th of July celebration throughout the weekend, from the fireworks to the parade. It was great. Special shout out to Councilman Farrell for bringing the only float that actually floated. He brought his boat. It was nice, but always a great show, always a great thing to provide for the citizens. It's always nice to see all the kids and families who come out to celebrate Middletown and to celebrate our independence and 4th of July. So that was really nice. Thank you to Thomas Hall for coming out here and talking to us about everything that you're up to in Columbus and the things that you're doing for Middletown. We certainly appreciate all of the efforts that you make on our behalf. And your family had a nice showing at the parade as well. And I think that's all I have for today. Thank you to Jerry Lewis again.
Mr. Moon.
Yes, I'll be brief. Was out of town this past weekend, but heard nothing but wonderful things about all the events in town, thanks to staff and all the volunteers that helped put that on. And then to Mr. Hall, thank you again, as everybody said, for both the capital state requests. Those are a big help to town, specifically the community center. And excited to hear more about the demolition grants. I had not heard that, so would love to see that email if you have time to forward it on. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Reader's Paul.
Yeah, Abdul, we go way back. So the names you mentioned, like Colson's and Mitchell, they're still in town, which is amazing all these years later. So that's cool, they're still in Middletown. So thank you for the history lessons. I didn't know this, so that's awesome. The fireworks, I mean, the staff just hit it out of the park. Nothing but compliments. It was amazing. Everything from the food trucks to the actual fireworks show itself. But a lot of times, we give, police and fire a lot of the credit, but got to give the credit to Public Works and Scott's team. I mean, my gosh, they're out there directing traffic. They were picking up trash. They really ran that event. When you saw it, that's what you saw. So just a great job. And Paul, nice job. I saw you out there picking up trash and handing out water. And I don't know if I've ever seen a city manager do that. And like I mentioned to somebody before, you have a servant's heart, and you don't see many people in your position that would do something like that. So outstanding. Thomas, thank you so much for securing that for us. We need everything we can get, so that's a win for us. So thank you. But I think that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm just going to continue on that same trend and specifically call out, I know Nicole Clark put a lot of work into that event, and Ashley Baumgartner as well, so big thanks to them and Jerry Lewis and the whole parade committee, and also to our citizens for coming out and actually participating, because if the citizens aren't there, well, shoot, it's not worth it. So thank you guys for coming out and being an amazing community. And that's all I have. That brings us to city manager report.
Okay, I just have a couple things, Mayor. One thing, as for the citizens of Middletown's patience, Public Works will restart up the limb pickup from last month's storm. They kind of had to take a hiatus last week to help get things ready for the July 4th festivities. So they're going to be back out on it the next couple weeks. So please be patient. If yours hasn't been picked up, just give us a call and we'll make sure it gets picked up. But that is happening. You guys pretty much stole my thunder about the thank you to Public Works. The July 4th festivities were incredible. Those were the best fireworks that I've seen in a long time. Those fireball things were just amazing. I thought it was a malfunction at first, and I was ready to throw my fire gear back on. I couldn't find it though. But it was incredible. And Team Fast Tracks, it's one thing to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, but then to do it with fireworks on your boots. God, wow. It really was a great event. And Nicole Clark organizing it and everybody on the committee, Scott, your team. I know I left about 11:30, but you still had guys there working till what, 1:30, something like that. So I'm very appreciative of that. So everybody did a fantastic job. If you didn't get out there, you missed it. So get out there next year. That's all I have.
Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. Ms. Skink.
For consideration this evening, we have the approval of the State of the City Address minutes held December 7th, 2021. To receive and file the following Board and Commission minutes of Planning Commission from February the 9th and March the 9th, 2022. The Historic Commission for March 17th and April 21st, 2022. The Board of Health for May 10th, 2022. For Midpoint Library, May 18th, 2022. And Civil Service, May 19th, 2022. To accept the final plat for Waterford Place, Section 1, for a total of 12 residential lots with public streets, water, sanitary, and storm sewers on a total of 2.156 acres. To authorize the city manager to enter into a professional services contract with Burns & McDonnell for the design of a post-aeration system at the water reclamation facility in an amount not to exceed $54,460. And to confirm the appointment of William Kaminos to the position of Assistant Information Systems Director in the Department of Information Systems.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Did we receive the minutes for the State of the City address? I don't see them in the workbook, and
I sent them separately to council.
In there.
no, they're not in the workbook on the internet. That's the one I was going off of.
Oh, on the internet. No, they're in an email.
I haven't read them. I'm going to abstain from voting, I guess. Okay.
Can we pool them to be approved at a later date?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I go off the workbook and went off emails. I just didn't.
Can I make a
just
motion
didn't-
that we pool the approval of the State of the City address minutes from the consent agenda?
I'll second that.
All right, so we'll call a vote on that. Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Now I'm off. Who did I miss?
I would like to motion to approve the
The rest of the
approve the consent agenda as amended.
Okay.
I'll second. Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
That brings us to legislation.
Members of council, we have 3 items on here that are proposed as emergency legislation, items 1, 3, and 4. So before we get started, I'd invite a motion to waive the charter requirements pertaining to 2 readings and emergency requirements.
I move to waive the charter provisions requiring reading on 2 separate days and to declare resolution number R 2022-24, resolution number R 2022-25, and ordinance number O 2022-62 an emergency and read one time only.
I'll second.
Before you call the roll, Amy, I had a question for Mr. Musser. I'm going to have to abstain from number 4, as I have in the past on Frias. Should I abstain from the vote on the emergency as well?
I think you can, if you want to vote on it, I think you can vote with respect to the other 2 and just abstain with respect to that one. So
But I can vote on it being an emergency.
the other 2, I would not vote on
No,
that
I'm
one
saying
being emergency.
on Monica's proposal to waive the charter provision. Can I vote on that?
I think you can vote on that as it pertains to the 2 that are the ones you are voting on. You know what I mean?
But the motion
it
is,
comes-
but the motion is to waive the charter for all of those items at this point before we move on to have the actual vote.
Yeah, it would probably be cleaner if we broke it up.
Okay.
To do the 2.
Okay, so can I amend my,
Yes.
doing all kinds of things tonight.
Very good.
I'm going to move to amend my provision to separate legislation items number 1 and 3 from legislation item number 4 as it pertains to voting on an emergency measure for those items.
So, Ms. Nanny, I would suggest that you make your motion first with respect to items 1 and 3. Let everybody get a second and let everyone vote, and then do it again with
Do
item.
we need to rescind our first?
So I'll rescind my first.
I'll rescind the second.
Okay, starting over. I move to waive the charter provisions requiring a reading on 2 separate days and to declare resolution number R 2022-24 and resolution number R 2022-25 as an emergency measure and read one time only.
Second?
Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
I'd now like to move to waive the charter provisions requiring reading on 2 separate days and to declare ordinance number O 2022-62 as an emergency measure and read one time only.
Second. Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Abstain?
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
The first item tonight is resolution number R 2022-24, a resolution establishing the fire station levy fund and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Council, this is the process to go ahead and establish the levy funds to pay the debt and the construction acquisitions of the 4 new fire stations, as it states.
Any questions from council?
Just happy to see everything still moving forward. Can't wait.
Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Second item tonight is ordinance number O-2022-61, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the rehabilitation of the larger bridge-size corrugated metal pipe that carries State Route 122 over Crawford Street. This is second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
This again is the construction done by ODOT over the area of 122 Crawford and University. ODOT needs our permission to move forward. Once again, ODOT picks up the cost on this.
Any comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item number 3 is resolution number R 2022-25, a resolution approving execution of a settlement agreement pertaining to demolition work at 2218 Central Avenue and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
The only thing to add here, council, is that the family has gone ahead and signed the agreement, so their lawyer fees will not be included in the cost.
Any comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item 4 this evening is ordinance number O-2022-62, an ordinance amending ordinance number O-2022-13, which authorized the city manager to enter into a contract with Freya's Hen House, a nonprofit organization, to provide a short-term warming shelter for the homeless, authorizing execution of a settlement agreement and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
After several months of working with the attorneys representing Freya's Hen House, this is the agreement that staff has come down to for settling things up with Freya's Hen House to operate the short-term warming center.
I would really like staff to look into a new contract with the an organization that's administering our HUD funding. I feel like this is an extreme failure on their part, and I'm beyond livid that we're using general fund money to do this. I know everyone is frustrated by that, but the hammer has to come down somewhere, and if that's not it, I don't know where it is, but I would have never approved this if it was coming out of the general fund. Obviously, very frustrated, but I know we're at where we are right now, and we need to figure a solution, and I appreciate all the effort made to do that in the right manner, but I feel like we also overpaid on this contract now, because now we're paying out the full length of the contract when they reneged early. There's just, this whole thing was disappointing in a lot of ways. I know we're all frustrated by it, but at the same time, we kept people warm over the winter, so we have to look at that win and move forward with that as well. So
You recommend going like a totally different route for next year?
I know we approved the contract for who administers the HUD
Right.
funding, and I would have really appreciated them going through the paperwork appropriately to make sure we went through the process appropriately. And I feel like that's a lot of what we're paying them to do. I feel like it was a failure, and we've had problems.
I
with
think the
same
mix-up
contract.
came is when we changed it from the original site, and the paperwork was done for that, and then it was moved to Freya's. That's where the paperwork snafu occurred.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions from council? I know I sent a few in about why we were paying all 3 months, and apparently we overpaid on January stuff early on, which I don't even know why we did that. So at this point, I'm okay with just getting it done with. I think we've done as good as we can to clean up the paperwork, but
I also would add that in the aftermath of the paperwork snafu, that we have an opportunity now, while it's still not cold and still summertime, and we've still got several months before we lead up to this again, to find a solution and maybe have a work session or do something, or implore staff to present us with an alternative plan for how we're going to do that this winter.
We've already had a couple meetings with a new group of individuals who are starting to do some work on that, and that's the goal, is to get it done before it gets cold.
Sure.
So it will not be a last minute thing. We will
this is
we'll have a plan in place by the fall.
Great to hear.
I'd also like to see all the metrics and sign-ins from the warming shelter that we asked for when they ran it, and where these people are coming from, how many people use it, all that kind of stuff. I think it helps in decision-making moving forward as well. So we asked them to add that, like, where they're coming from metric, and I would really be curious about that one.
And if that information isn't available, we need to make sure that the next go-around, that is something that is a strong stipulation, that we need those statistics.
May I ask the chief a question?
Yes.
Are the drop-offs still occurring in Middletown? Because there's some who clearly say they don't occur. I'd like to hear it from the boss himself if the drops are still occurring.
Yeah, the drops are still occurring. I had to call Hamilton PD last week for another situation at the Hope House. So I contacted them and said, you need to come immediately. I informed Paul, even though he was on vacation, and they came and picked the individual up. But yeah, it's still occurring. But we are working. I'm going to touch base with Bill Fugit this week, try to set something up with him and Paul and myself.
Shalom back.
Well, that's what we want to talk about. They have a new pastor, so that's the key, is to find out what their goal is this winter, because they were really a big part when it came to the winter months, when it came to the homeless. They had very little problems. If they did, Bill would call us. He would handle a lot of them himself. So that was ran all by volunteers. So I'm going to try to get a meeting together. We're already working on it. Diane Rhodes is helping us. So we are going to come up with a plan before we even get close to the winter months.
I mean,
Thank you for being on top of it, Chief. Appreciate that.
No problem.
even before it gets to be winter, there are still fires happening in camps around
Yep,
town.
there is.
I drove past the encampment that we talked about on the Essity site just on my way to the parade the other day and saw a fire coming from the middle of the forest. I mean, it's just disheartening to see.
Yeah,
So.
it is, and we're continuing with our outreach. We're doing what we can, but we are having a lot of drop-offs, people coming from out of town. We're still fighting with a certain pastor that keeps on bringing people into his church on Madison that keeps on dropping people off. So we're dealing with that on a regular basis too. So we are working with them issues, but we're still getting people in the homes and getting them help. So unfortunately, nobody has a solution to the homeless issue right now. It's just not Middletown, it's everywhere. So we are working with different groups and trying to come up with a solution.
I think the thing that we've talked about for years is cities need to take care of their people just like we do. And human beings aren't stray dogs and cats. You don't drop them off. Not that that's right either. But the point is what they're doing is just, it's not right. It's inhumane.
It is, yeah, and
yeah.
we're trying to, our first goal is to try to get that warming shelter and set in place now before it gets to the point where we're rushing around like we did last time.
I watched an interview yesterday. It was in '89. It was Ronald Reagan talking about, I guess, some court case that just happened in New York City of where a homeless person wanted to be homeless, and he couldn't believe that they actually won that court case and that people were actually starting to live on the streets and choose that kind of life and everything. And it's just amazing that in 33 years, kind of where we're at. So I commend you for all that you guys do for this, because it's not an easy problem, and this is how you solve this over the last 50 years. People couldn't believe it back then. In 30 years now, it's just normalcy. So there's no roadmap to fixing this. It's just you try to make the problem slightly better.
And I think the big issue is back in the 80s, we had a lot of mental health help with clinics and stuff, and that's where we're really struggling right now is the mental health. A lot of these individuals that are homeless are using drugs and alcohol to actually mask the mental health issue. they're self-medicating. And so we're reaching out, and that's who we're seeing a lot of people getting dropped off. You know, the Hope House is not really a homeless shelter. It's more of a substance abuse program now. So, so we're working, Paul's working with us every day. We're working with different groups, so we're trying to come up with solutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Skin, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Abstain.
Item 5 this evening is ordinance number O-2022-63, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with IAFF Local 336 for the payment of premium pay using American Rescue Plan Act funds and declaring an emergency. There's no action requested until July 19, 2022.
Council, this is the premium pay for the firefighters that other city employees have received. We reached an agreement with the firefighters collective bargaining group. The reason why it's a 2-reading emergency is that to keep it in line with maintaining contractual obligations, to get it in by August 12th, it's a 2nd reading emergency.
Item number 6 this evening is ordinance number O-2022-64, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the lowest cost supplier for the purchase of electric generation supply by the city of Middletown beginning January 2023 and declaring an emergency. There's no action requested until July 19, 2022.
Scott, did you have anything to add on this, or? Okay, other than exactly what it says, it's to allow for us to make the contract with Ohio Energy Analytics to get our prices set for our electrical supplies.
All right. Item 7 this evening is resolution number R 2022-26, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31, 2022, and declaring an emergency. This is for the general fund legal services. No action requested until July 19, 2022.
Council, this is a result of a lot of litigation that we've done throughout 2022. As you are aware, we've had a lot of litigation situations, probably more than we've had over the last several years, and therefore the result thereof is we exhausted what we budgeted for relatively quickly in the first half of the year.
Now, is this an amount that you believe should be able to get us through the end of the year?
We hope it'll get us close to the end of the year, barring any unforeseen litigation situations, but I can't guarantee that we won't have to come back later in the year.
Item 8 this evening is resolution number R 2022-27, a resolution accepting the resignation of Paul Lally as acting city manager, accepting the resignation for purposes of retirement of Paul Lally as fire chief, authorizing an employment agreement with Paul Lally to serve as city manager of the city of Middletown, and declaring an emergency. There's no action requested until July 19, 2022.
Well, this is the one I struggle with the most. The only thing I'll say is I appreciate the support and the faith you guys have shown in me. And I'm ready to do this permanently. It's bittersweet. I sent an email to the firefighters today. I kind of struggled with it, but
You get to lead.
I'm
them
looking
in a
forward to it.
whole new way now.
Yeah.
We're very, very grateful for all of your commitment to this city. I know all of the citizens have heard so many incredible things from so many people from every pocket of the city, regionally, every level. Everyone is just grateful for your attitude, your willingness to engage, and also to find the answers and not just tell everyone you know every piece of everything.
Right.
The willingness to go find the answers is so critical, and it's needed, and that's how we accomplish great things. So I know I'm thrilled to have you here and for your service.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the support.
Did you tell him that part of the contract he has to jump out of the plane with you?
No.
'Cause I could have swore I read that. Real quick, just say I'm happy. I mean, we Paul and I've worked together as patrolmen, firemen, all the way up to chiefs, and to see you do this, I mean, I can't be more happy for Middletown.
Who would have thought?
I've had those conversations many times, like, are you going to retire? Are you going to retire? But this is, I'm really happy, and I think that council's making a great choice. And I know from just talking to everybody at the fireworks the other night that the city is happy about this. And so when the residents are happy, we're happy. So good luck, man. I know you'll do a great job.
Well, what I'm lucky is I got a lot of people around me who are just awesome. Nathan, Scott, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Dave, even though he's police, he does a good job. But shh.
Whoa.
And the succession in the fire department, do they even know I'm gone? You know, so so I thank you. I appreciate it very much.
I'll save my thoughts on the promotion till next week, but I'll just say, you know, as fire chief, in my 7 years, you know, rarely had to ask many questions because everything was thought out well and researched well, and you know, there wasn't a lot of headaches or drama coming from that department. So just thank you for your leadership there, and as you said, I'm sure it's bittersweet, but thank you for 30 plus years in the fire department.
Thank you.
Looking forward to more.
Yep.
You know, Paul, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to piggyback on that and say, you know, Paul, I think you've fought really hard for the city, and you've fought really hard for the department over your tenure here, and I'm sure the fire department will be sad to see you go. But you know, you say thank you to us for having faith in you, and I have to tell you, thank you for having faith in the city and for trying to make it better every day.
Thank you. We will. It'll be good.
The first time I ever met you, Paul, you don't remember, but it was at one of my football coaches' funerals, unfortunately, Southie.
Okay.
And I had just seen you on TV like the week before talking about something. I mean, this was, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago maybe. But I walked up and my grandpa introduced us, and I was just a kid at that point. I was in college. And you probably talked to me for 5 or 6 minutes. I don't remember what we talked about, but I just remember you gave me the time of the day for no reason other than it was just somebody that lived here that you cared about just because they cared about the community. And I always remember that. Never told you that story, but it meant a lot.
Thank you. Well, it's about people. I mean, communications and people.
Just be careful who you inspire, because they might end up here on council, so.
Hey, you didn't inspire me that.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll see how this goes next meeting.
Yeah. I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks.
All right. Item number 9 tonight is resolution number R 2022-28, a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant from the Federal Railroad Administration Railroad Trespassing Enforcement Grant Program. This is a first reading.
I don't have any further information on or comments on this. This is the purpose of this is to give the police department the ability to accept federal grant on running some programs to keep the railroads through Middletown safer.
I was just curious if Chief Burke had anything to add to that. I was curious about, you know, I guess maybe you don't hear a whole lot about railway-related incidents as it relates to what it said, trespass enforcement,
Yes.
that sort of thing. What is?
We've had over the years, we've had people, it was a couple years ago on Charles Street right there at Manchester, somebody was hit by a train, he was intoxicated. And a lot of times, homeless tend to walk the tracks. So our goal with this grant would be to get the money from the federal government and actually kind of operate it like metropolitan housing, where you have officers pair up and they just go around and check all the intersections, check the tracks, just to make sure there's no camps or anybody near the tracks, just to try to keep them safe and away from being hit. I think here recently somebody was hit it was actually outside the city a little bit. But that's the key, is to make sure that we don't have any incidents on the tracks.
And is it like cameras, or is it mostly just?
No, it's just mostly foot
officers?
patrol, officers going to the intersections, just making sure there's nobody, to the side. Sometimes they put camps right there in the woods next to the tracks, so we just want to make sure they're as safe as possible. So that's all it is just checking the intersections. We get a lot of complaints up there off of Crescent. We get a lot of complaints up there where people are cutting through the tracks and going over to Nell Bar, that kind of area there. But yeah, we do get complaints throughout the city. So it's just a way that we can enforce it without actually using city overtime or general fund or anything like that.
Did I read, though, that the grant is to be used for overtime?
Yeah, it's used for...
So we're not going to be able to add people
No,
to this?
it's used for overtime.
Okay.
Thank you.
That should bring us to new business, I believe.
I was just going to bring it, but we already discussed it, about the warming center for this next year, but the manager already expressed
we're working
on it. So.
We're working with a couple groups on it.
And I know I was planning to bring up the citizen comments and the number of minutes. I don't know if this council is interested in increasing that. I personally would like to increase it to either 4 or 5 minutes. I think it's more realistic. I don't know, Zach, if you wanted to talk anymore. And that was a comment you wanted to bring up here. So
Well, I think we actually talked about this, a week or two ago, so it kind of came at an ironic point. But yeah, I think, what's our cutoff time now? Is it 60 minutes or?
Mhm.
So I'm fine with 4 minutes. I feel like that's a good amount, but that's just me personally. I'm open to ideas.
I guess I'm of the mind that if we only have a few people coming down to speak, let them finish. I mean, I don't know how long that usually takes, but can we, in that moment, make the decision? Because being of the council that made the decision to limit it, I think a lot of that conversation, if I'm thinking back, was about some of the more hotly debated meetings and trying to, in an effort to control the time and the length of time of the entire meeting and those sort of things. So I guess I'm trying not to let that totally fall by the wayside, to think of new time constraints, but also, it is also at the purview of the mayor and council to say, go ahead and finish if we'd like for them to.
As the one responsible for running the meeting, I would like to keep it to a specific amount of time. Otherwise, it is subjective and it's asking too much, and I think we're gonna get in.
That's understandable.
Yeah, I understand.
I like your 4. I mean, this is a lifelong Middletown resident until he just moved to Dayton. He comes all the way from Dayton, and we have to cut him off. He's talking about our history.
Right.
So I think 4 minutes is, would another minute worked for you? 5? He said 5. I'm surprised you didn't say 6.
I was watching how
4
many
minutes, 30 seconds.
we still had left, and it looked like about a 5 minute.
No, but I mean, so I agree with Councilman Farrell. It needs to be increased, and I understand keeping a limit.
So would that mean increasing the allotted time per person to 5 minutes, but also still constraining the time for citizen comments at the beginning to 60 minutes with the option to continue those comments at the end of the meeting, just for the purposes of time and staff resources and those sort of things?
Yeah, we can, I think at one point we did, as a council, motion to extend the 60 minutes to, it was, 10 minutes longer, I think, to whatever it was, to account for, we knew we had a couple more comments, so
Sure.
We can do that, in the moment if we want. But if there's an exorbitant number over that, we can stick to the 60 and motion to listen to the rest at the end. We can change that. I think that
So we
part
can
a little
leave
bit
that
easier.
the way it is and amend that as we have in the past, but just amend the amount of time that's allowed for each individual to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with the 4 minutes in the hour, because at some point, we have really important business that we have to get to, and it can't just kind of be a filibuster that goes
When you've
on
got
forever.
attorneys waiting and.
So I'd say 4 minutes and then an hour, and see where that takes us. We can revisit it in a month if we need to revisit it in a month.
I'm fine with 4 or 5. I just don't want to see us go up and then have to go back down, because then I feel like we're censoring people at that point. It's not what I want to do. It's counterproductive to what we're doing here. So
Then 4 minutes it is.
Sounds like we have a consensus. Do we need to vote on something like that in order to change the procedure?
Do we need-
Is that something?
Take
that
a vote, and that way it's clear.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we extend the citizens' comments to 4 minutes each.
Second.
Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Thank you.
33% more time it is. Any other new business comments?
One of the residents brought up to me, and I never thought about it, but as far as communicating with the public, obviously we have Facebook. There's no one system that's going to be great for everybody. And this just kind of got brought up to me today, and I'm just throwing it out there. But so if something happens with Duke Energy, I get an alert on my phone that says, hey, your power's out for the next 4 hours. Can the city figure out a way to do that for our residents if they opt into some type of
Emergency.
We do have code red systems that we use for emergencies such as water boil advisories. Scott or Dave, do you any others? I mean, if there is like an emergency,
Right.
like we had a chemical spill or a fire a few years ago at one of the chemical companies on Yankee Road,
Yeah.
and we did the code reverse 911 call or the code red system to alert residents. So we do, but we don't for things such as your power's out.
Well, not necessarily power's out, but how can we figure out an easier way to just get information to the residents? Such as, like, I shared the thing on Facebook about the limb pickup, and it was not received well, in my opinion, to the residents personally, for the fact that they felt like we should have communicated better. And I think that we've been working on that so much, I feel like we're doing a better job.
Yeah, we put a lot of stuff out on the city's webpage and the websites, and we did do press releases.
So is there not a way to figure out, like, how can we send a bi-weekly update of a couple things happening in Middletown? Is that an unreasonable?
I think the newsletter.
Yeah, and we are starting the newsletter.
Yeah, the newsletter looks
soon.
really nice. I saw that.
Yeah, that's
Can the
really
same code red system be used to contact people in an opt-in system that says, hey, I want communications updates?
Yeah,
So
the
they
communication, the code red is kind of reserved for emergencies. We don't want to overuse the system to where people just desensitize to it. But I will get with Missy Knight, our communications coordinator, and see what we can do to step the game up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I know people, every time I go somewhere, people ask me, what's new with this, what's new with that? If we just, obviously we have the newsletter coming out, but how can we, I think so much of the way the world's going is we want information right now, easily accessible.
Yep.
Nobody's going to work hard for the information anymore. So
Yes.
we have to be able to meet them where they're at, I think. So something has to happen there, I think.
I can reach out to Municipal League and see if there's any, best practices that other communities are using beyond what we're familiar with.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I mean, I had multiple people comment on my status and tell me what other cities have done. And there's no perfect system, obviously, but what's one thing we can do to get better? Yeah. It's great.
Any other new business items? Okay, well, we have 2 different executive session requests, so I'm going to do we read each of them separately or all together and then?
We'll go into executive session. We'll have executive session. We'll return to regular session. We'll adjourn to the second executive session.
Okay, are we expecting business between the 2 sessions?
No, I think it is just avoiding any concerns about voting on going into executive session for anybody who might abstain from the second one. Or not.
Is there a topic about the second one that I should know about that I should be abstaining from? Because I would appreciate that information
Yes,
in
the
advance.
second emergency session is about the airport.
Okay, so this.
And
is
I
not the first
apologize
time
for
this has
that.
happened, but legal counsel, how was I going to know that? I don't get this information from. I feel like there's a lot of times where our legal department should be proactively telling council members, at least sensitizing us to some of the issues. We find ourselves constantly having to make a lot of these decisions in the blind, so I would appreciate that in advance.
Okay, I'll accept responsibility for that. That was my fault. I thought it was communicated to you. I misunderstood what I was told this morning, so that actually was my fault. I apologize.
I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. It's
Nah,
just like
it was my fault. I made an assumption. Shouldn't have.
Okay, so with that, we have a request to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, the sale of property at competitive bidding, or the sale or other disposition of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for use property in accordance with Section 505.10 of the revised code if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest. Do we have a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
Okay, after that, we will move back into open session with the plan to go back into executive session after that, and then come back in open session and finish the meeting. Thank you. I suppose since everyone else will be leaving, then our next meeting, I always like to say when that's going to be, hang on, will be July 19th at 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers. And until then, blue skies over Middletown.